Ron Jackson, and we're going to be talking about creating bass lines on the guitar in jazz. So before we do that, please subscribe right now at Ron Jackson Music, and please share with all your friends. So we're going to talk about walking bass lines. That was actually the end of the song called Fly Me to the Moon. Just the last about 8 bars, and I did a little Count Basie ending there. But a lot of guitar players always wondering how do I play all these bass lines with all these fancy chords. And I've done quite a bit of lessons, but I haven't done an in-depth video myself about that particular subject. So we're going to talk about it now. So you could take a song like "Fly Me to the Moon" and use the iReal Pro like I have here. You can get that anywhere, for Android or iPhone, and it's a great app just to have the chord changes, And I'm just using the chord changes to fly me to the moon in the key of A minor, and so there's no melody or anything, so you can just work on the bass line. So the most important thing is with a bass line is the most basic bass line is actually just quarter notes, okay? And so you should be able to just play just the bass notes through a song like this using quarter notes. And remember, in jazz, when we're walking, you're emphasizing the 2 and 4, accenting the 2 and 4 like a hi-hat. So I don't have my metronome set up because I have my phone right here and I'm filming with my phone, but you could actually just set the metronome to a 2 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And the bass line would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That kind of accent on the 2 and 4. I started learning that. I had a roommate in college at Berkeley, and he said, "Man, you're playing jazz." When I was 18, he was telling me, "Hey, man, put the metronome on 2 and 4, man." That was so hard for me to do back then because I couldn't play any kind of jazz then. So, it's great to set your metronome to 2 and 4, and also 1 and 4. I mean, 1 and 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. All kinds of different ways to work with a metronome. You can set it to off beats, all kinds of stuff. But for now, just try to set the metronome to, like the hi hat, to 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the bass line would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So the point is to be able to play through the whole song with the chord on top with the bass line. So most of the time I teach my guitar players, a lot of my guitar players just know basic closed voicing chords like this, like the A minor or 7 like this on Fly Me to the Moon to D minor. Really basic, chords like this. Sometimes drop 2, etc. Okay? So you should be able just to play your chords like that by doing a strum like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. All through the changes. To the song. So that's the most basic bass line, okay, just so you know. And so, usually when we're playing comping chords, when we're comping the bass line, the chord on top of the bass line, we don't hold the chord out like in whole notes like that either. Sounds corny. We don't do that. So I'm going to give you some comping rhythms later, but the most important thing for you now in this lesson is just to learn the basics of a walking bass line. So what I usually do is this. I teach my students how to do just the basic root of every chord, every measure. And if it's, 2 beats to a chord, just play 2 beats. So if it's E minor 7 to A7, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And just play the basic chord until you get used to playing the bass line. Now, the next step is to do root and fifth, okay? Now, you saw me doing these bass lines that connect in the beginning of the video, but we'll get into that next. So the next thing to do is like root and fifth. So you can do, on the A minor chord, you can go root, which is A, E, or you can go 2 beats each, or you can go root, fifth, or root, fifth, 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 it's hard to say it, etc. chord all the time either. I'm just showing you how to play the chord with the bass line. You should be able to separate the bass line as well. So, I mean, you should be able to go 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, and then play the root fifth the same. Etc. Just the bass line itself. Now, you know, that's tricky to do, to be able to play the root and fifth and be able to do it correctly itself. So that takes a lot of practice. I've been doing this for a long, long time, so that's why I can do it. Now, the thing is to play that chord on top of the bass line like that. Now the bass, you don't have to go root fifth the whole time. You can go root fifth. So you can do root fifth, root. So 2 beats each. Root fifth, root fifth. That's another one of those root fifth bass lines. So you can mix them up. So now you have 2 different kinds of bass lines. You can just play quarter notes, all on the root, or you could do root fifth, 1 beat each, or root fifth, 2 beats each. So you have 3 different kinds of bass lines already. Now that's hard to do. Just to do that correctly and do it in time, you know, just say, let me mix them up for you right now in person right now. Watch this. I'm just doing single note. Root fifth, root fifth, etc. So I'm actually mixing all those up now. That's really hard to do. Now I'm only playing in this area. I haven't even gone up to this part of the neck yet. So you can start doing those bass lines like this. I'm not even playing any fancy chords either. Really basic closed form chords. Root fifth, 2 beats each. Okay, so etc. So I'm actually just trying to play through the changes, or kind of play through the changes to Fly Me to the Moon, just like that. So the next step is a progressive step, actually. So you could do root fifth. You could actually do arpeggios. This is the next one. I'm just doing root, third, fifth. So this is a minor third because it's a minor chord. D minor. Etc. Now that's hard to do too. So you got to really know your arpeggios all over the neck. And one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning, when you're doing walking bass lines in general, the general rule is to make sure that you don't play past the 4th string. I keep most of my bass lines mostly on the 6th and 5th string, and since I play 7-string guitar, it's mostly 7th and 6th string, and the 5th string, never the 4th. But on the on the 6th-string guitar, you could actually cheat and go to the 4th string sometime, and but I tend to go low, just like bass players. They tend to play real low, a lot of open strings, and you try to use the open strings too, which is really good to get that low sound. Watch this. I tend to play the 5th and 6th string on my walking bass lines. Now, so you could do the arpeggio thing too next. Now put the chord on there. So now, what I'm doing now is I'm not playing the full chord because there's too much to do when I'm doing these arpeggiatic bass lines. I'm actually doing the 3rd and 7th of each chord. I had like a little video about this that people were like wondering, wow, that's not really a chord. They call it a dyad, just 2-note chord. So I usually use the 3rd and 7th on top of the bass line. Okay, so you could just play you have to really practice this. I actually have a video about this. Go look at my other videos from the past on my YouTube channel, and you can see I do a video with just 2-note voicings of 3rds and 7ths, that are usually played on the third and fourth string like this. So I'm playing A minor like this, 2 notes, a dyad, and then a G7, C major 7, F major 7, then B minor 7, and then E7. So these are really easy chords to play, and they actually have the full sound of the chord without the root or the fifth. Now, when I do my bass lines like that, it sounds really cool, like this. Or like this. See what I'm doing? I'm not trying to play the arpeggio when I get to the when I get from the 5th string root to the of the chord, you know. And when I do the 6th string root, I do the arpeggio, and then I do the. And I try to go when I get to the 5th string root, I try to play the 6th string to be able to keep those, you know, keep the strings down low so it sounds like a real bass. See what I'm doing? Low, low, 6th string, now 5th string, 5th string. See how I go from the 5th to the 6th and play that 5th on the bottom, the root 5th. So I'm trying to keep everything real low like a bass player. So that's another technique. So we learn roots, root 5th, different kinds of variations, and then arpeggios. Okay, root 3rd, 5th, depending, root flat 3 or root natural 3, depending on the major or minor chord. Now, that's, you know, and those are really the most basic bass lines. And the next step really is connecting bass lines like a bass player would do. He doesn't go like that though. He doesn't do that. He'll go like this. See what I'm doing? So what I'm doing is actually I'm doing connecting bass lines to the next chord. So I'll go from the A minor, I'll go to the B, and then I'll do the C. Then on the offbeat, I'm playing the C sharp. Then I get to the root, passing tone. So remember, there's chromatic notes that go between the chord scales of each chord. So what's really important now when you do connecting bass lines is you have to really know your chord scales, as well as, you know, learning how to connect between the root 3rd and 5th of each chord, going through the changes. Now, you don't have to worry about the 7th if it's a 7th chord, because it's going to be going by so fast. I guess you could do arpeggiating, you know, bass lines like that. 1, 3, 5. So this is 1 flat 3, 5 flat 7, 1 flat 3, 5 flat 3, 5 flat 7, etc. It's so hard to say that. So you get the point. But it sounds kind of corny, no? Sounds like an exercise. It sounds kind of corny. So, you know, bass players don't really play like that. I mean, you could, but, you know, most bass players try to do this. See what I'm doing? Now, these are like kind of bass lines I learned from Ron Carter, Paul Chambers, whoever. If you're going to be into walking bass lines like this, connecting them like that, with passing tones in between the chord tones that lead you to the root on time, etc. We won't get into this later. You don't have to hit the root also, just so you know. But this is just really a basic bass line lesson. What you can actually do is just one of the best things to do is listen to bass players and transcribe their bass lines. So it's really cool, you know. I mean, you know, Paul Chambers, Ron Carter, I mean, all the great Slam Stewarts, whoever, you know, all the great jazz bass players. You should get into what they're doing and learn their bass lines to learn how to connect bass lines. That's how I did it. You know, I play bass too, so it's important to know all these different little techniques. But the most basic thing about the bass line is make sure you just play quarter notes and keep it going without stopping. Because, you know, a bass line doesn't sound good if you go, oops. It's like out of time. You can't do that. The bass line has to be. A lot of bass players think this is kind of boring, but it's not, because if you can keep time with that quarter note without, you know, losing the time, that timing is the most important thing. Now, once you get the timing and the groove all together, then you can put all the fancy stuff you want, fancy crap, whatever you want to call it, and just learn how to connect those bass lines. See now, sometimes I don't play those walking bass lines with all those connecting bass notes. Sometimes I'll play like a quarter note. I mean, a bunch of quarter notes on the same root. So so it's a combination of all kinds of different things you can do. And also when I'm playing through the changes like Fly Me to the Moon here, there's all kinds of different variations of this, and you could actually do all kinds of like passing tones and substitutions and all kinds of stuff in a song like Fly Me to the Moon. So so that's just a basic lesson about playing walking bass lines on the guitar, on the 6-string guitar particularly. So you got to think like a bass player, everybody. This is not like a lot of guitar players want to do bass lines. They think, oh, I'm going to play a bass line, just because it's cool, and just to walk the bass line through through the song. But it's more than that. A bass line is really a bass line, and you got to really study bass players to make it sound authentic as well. And then I'm giving you a really fast lesson about this, but also to be able to play bass lines, you got to really know your chords and the chord scale for each chord as well, okay, and different voicings and different fingerings. Now, when I'm playing these bass lines, I got to adjust my fingering. I can't play common voicings like this and play a bass line easily. I have to adjust. I use my fingers. I use my 3rd or 4th fingers, different kinds of fingerings, just to be able to get that bass line going. Watch my fingers. See, I'm using all kinds of fingerings like this, where I'm using my 2nd finger, for example, playing the root of this D minor chord instead of playing like this. So I can play that bass line and reach these notes with these other fingers, etc. Okay? So there's a lot involved. So one of the things I like to teach my students is that your fingering is not important. It's the notes that you find in the patterns that you can find on the guitar neck to be able to play these, bass lines like this, or anything actually. Your fingering shouldn't matter. A lot of guitar players memorize the same fingering, but you could play like a C major 7 like this. I could go like this. I don't have to play like this with my 1st finger like this. Okay? Or it's like playing a C chord like this, or like this. A bar chord. You can play 2 different ways. I can play it like this. I don't have to use my 1st finger. So you have to think very open about your fingerings when you're doing these bass lines and all these fancy chord melody things you could actually do on guitar. So this is my impromptu kind of like lesson that I do for my patrons as well, and for YouTube. And I'm going to be writing a lesson like this for Patreon as well, okay? And about bass lines. But this video is all about the basics of bass lines. And I actually have a chord melody arrangement of Fly Me to the Moon. It kind of goes through this type of thing. Does something like that, okay? Where I'm actually using inversions and stuff for chord melody. I'm going to do another video soon about chord melody as well. So thank you very much. This is Ron Jackson with Ron Jackson Music on YouTube. Please subscribe to my channel and follow me everywhere at Ron Jackson Music. And I really appreciate you guys, all my fans and subscribers on YouTube. And I hope this helps you with your walking bass lines. A lot of guitar players ask about this. And remember to hit subscribe and share with your friends, and hit like and hit notifications. And I'll see you very soon. It's Ron Jackson. And go to ronjacksonmusic.com as well. And I sell my lessons there. And it's actually here on the description, all my links and everywhere you can follow me. Okay, so have a great day, everybody, wherever you're at. And thank you. Ron Jackson over and out.